biology, there are rules. You are born, you grow up, you age, and eventually you die. But in the murky canals of Mexico, there is a creature that has broken every single one of those rules for over 10 million years. Scientists once successfully transplanted the head of one living creature onto the back of another. It didn't just survive, it grew, it shared a circulatory system, and it lived for 65 weeks as a two-headed biological anomaly. This is the axolotl. It has a genome 10 times larger than yours, a 32 billion letter genetic puzzle. It is technically a forever infant that can reproduce without ever growing up. It can regrow its own brain, its heart, and its spinal cord. From its origins as a fugitive Aztec god to its current status as a laboratory miracle, we are realizing that this isn't just another salamander. It's a biological glitch. Nothing is normal about the axolotl. And here is why. To understand why the axolotl is so abnormal, you have to look at its name. In Aztec mythology, the legend of the five suns tells a grim truth. The world could only move forward if the gods sacrificed themselves to the sun. But Xolotl, the god of fire, lightning, and the twin of Quetzalcoatl, looked at the altar and ran. He was a master of disguise. To evade his executioners, he transformed first into a stalk of maize, then into an agave plant. But the hunters kept coming. In a final act of desperation, he plunged into the deep water of Lake Xochimilco and took his final form, the axolotl, or the water dog. When he was finally caught, his brother spared his life but issued a curse. Xolotl would live forever in the darkness, trapped in a body that could never leave the mud. Today, science is proving the Aztecs weren't just telling fairy tales. They were describing an animal that survived by literally hiding from its own evolution. The axolotl is a biological fugitive, living in a state of permanent exile. Most amphibians follow a predictable path. You're born in the water, you grow legs, you lose your gills, you develop lungs, and you crawl onto land. This is metamorphosis. But the axolotl looked at the blueprint of evolution and hit the pause button. This is neoteny. The axolotl reaches sexual maturity, the ability to have babies, while remaining in its infant larval form. They are the Peter Pans of the abyss. While their cousins, the tiger salamanders, grow up and face the world, the axolotl keeps its feathery external gills and its finned tail for its entire life. But it gets weirder. Inside that baby body, they're hiding a secret: fully functional lungs. This is what scientists call cryptic metamorphosis. They have the hardware to walk on land. They just choose not to. When the oxygen in the murky water drops too low, you can see them swim to the surface and gulp air, a ghost of a life they refuse to lead, unless we force them. In labs, a single shot of iodine can trigger their dormant genes. They lose their gills, their skin thickens, and they crawl out of the water. But because this is so fundamentally unnatural, these transformed axolotls rarely live long. Evolution designed them to stay in the water, and for the axolotl, growing up is a literal death sentence. If you look at an axolotl, it seems harmless. It even wears a permanent Mona Lisa smile. But nothing about its face is normal. They have undeveloped vestigial teeth that are useless for chewing. Instead, they use the vacuum method. When a worm or a small fish wanders too close, the axolotl opens its mouth so fast it creates a pressure vacuum, sucking the prey whole into its stomach in a fraction of a second. They are indiscriminate predators. They will eat crustaceans, insects, and even each other. Because they live in murky, silt-filled water where visibility is near zero, they don't rely on sight. They have a lateral line system, a series of sensory organs along their bodies that can detect tiny changes in water pressure and vibrations. They can feel you coming long before they see you. They are living sonar machines, perfectly adapted to a world of total darkness. This is where the axolotl becomes truly alien. If a human loses a limb, our body rushes to create scar tissue to stop the bleeding. If an axolotl loses a leg, a tail, a jaw, or even parts of its heart and brain, it doesn't scar, it reconstructs. Within 30 to 60 days, a new perfect limb grows back, indistinguishable from the original. This happens through a biological phenomenon called a blastema. When a wound occurs, the axolotl's cells do something that sounds like science fiction. They lose their identity. Muscle cells and skin cells forget what they are and revert back into stem cells. They return to a blank slate and then begin the process of building the limb from scratch. But not normal doesn't even begin to cover what they can do with each other's bodies. Because they have an abnormal immune system that doesn't recognize foreign tissue as an enemy. They are essentially biological Lego bricks. In that 1968 study, scientists successfully transplanted an axolotl head onto the back of another, and it lived for over a year. Today, we take cells from neon green glowing axolotls, modified with jellyfish DNA, and graft them onto white albino ones. Because their skin is translucent, you can actually watch a neon green bone grow inside a white body. If humans could unlock this regeneration, but it meant our skin would have to be translucent and we'd never age past childhood, would you take that trade? Let me know in the comments. Why can they do this and we can't? The answer is buried in a genetic code that dwarfs our own. The axolotl genome is a titan. It is 10 times larger than a human's, containing a staggering 32 billion base pairs. If you stretched out the DNA from a single axolotl cell, it would be over 30 feet long. Hidden in that massive library of data is a superpower: cancer resistance. Axolotls are 1,000 times more resistant to tumors than mammals. When scientists deliberately transplant cancerous cells into them, the axolotl often just fixes it. They identify the broken cells and either neutralize them or incorporate them into healthy tissue. We are currently racing to crack this code. We are trying to figure out how to switch off cancer in humans by mimicking the axolotl's genetic defense system. Evolution went too far with the axolotl, giving it a biological fortress that makes our own immune systems look primitive. Here's a fact that is definitely not normal. Almost every axolotl you see in pet stores, on TikTok, or even in Minecraft is a genetic ghost. In 1863, an expedition sent exactly 6 axolotls from Mexico to the Jardin des Plantes in Paris. 5 males and 1 female. Because they breed so easily in captivity, laying up to 1,000 eggs at a time, nearly every captive axolotl in the world today is descended from those original 6. This has created a massive genetic bottleneck. While we have hundreds of thousands of them in tanks, they are essentially clones of one another, lacking the genetic diversity of their wild ancestors. We have saved the species in a glass box, but we have turned a god into a lab rat. This leads us to the most abnormal thing of all. The axolotl is one of the most successful animals on the planet, yet it is almost extinct. In their ancestral home, the canals of Xochimilco, they are vanishing. In 1998, there were 6,000 per square kilometer. Today, there may be fewer than 35. Humans introduced invasive carp and tilapia to the waters for food, but these fish began eating axolotl eggs and competing for resources. But there is one last hope. Biologists in Mexico are working with traditional Chinampa farmers to build refugios, protected canal zones filtered by native plants and gravel. It's a desperate attempt to give the god his home back. Nothing is normal about the axolotl, not the way it stays young, not the way it regrows its brain, and not the way it is surviving its own extinction. We are obsessed with them because we see our own desires in them. We want their eternal youth. We want their ability to heal. We want their 32 billion letter secret. But the axolotl's smile isn't for us. It's just the shape of a creature that has survived for millions of years by staying exactly the same and hiding in the mud. If the wild axolotl disappears, we lose the original blueprint, the last living link to the god who refused to die. Maybe it's time we start protecting the monster in the water before the smile fades forever.